Y'all did come back. All right. Looks like you had a good time. What you gonna stay over here? The picture y'all took, you were in a laptop.
It's about that time if you want to come on and get in and get a good seat up front. I hope you picked up an announcement sheet. Most of this is pretty routine stuff that we've had for a couple of weeks, but we do want to go over them. Turn me down just a little bit, Joey. It's ringing in my ears. So remember Brian Davis, Joan Nichols' nephew. He is at home after being hospitalized with the COVID. He's doing much better. He also recently went into remission from his lymphoma. So those are two things to be proud for in Brian's life. Sherry Sharp has an appointment with the cardiologist at UAB today. I haven't heard back from her. Has anybody else heard back from her? They're looking to see if she needs a pacemaker. Yes, Ruth. She doesn't need a pacemaker today, but they're going to go back in March. Oh, they're going to watch her. Okay. So good news for Sherry. James Callan Jr. is in the hospital a couple of weeks with COVID and pneumonia. He got admitted to the ICU on Saturday due to his oxygen level dropping in the 60s. I couldn't be one of those movie doctors where you say, oh, so I can't get it out looking on the page right in front of me. So anyway, they've started him on different antibiotics. He's also on a BiPAP machine to help push air through his lungs. We're asked to remember him. My wife hopes and prays that she has an appointment this Friday, the 11th, at the cardiologist. Last time they called her on a Sunday night and told her her appointment had been canceled, and then they called her back and said, well, somebody had tested positive for COVID in the office, and so they had to close it down and disinfect everything and all that kind of stuff. I understand that there's a report at Hilton's office as well that one of his partners had tested positive for COVID, and he's on a quarantine for a little while, so keep Hilton in mind as well. Steve Sharp, we mentioned Sherry a minute ago, but Steve lost his last brother, last sibling, and there's some information about that. Lydia Dillingham's mother, Juanita Curtis, passed away today. And those of you who follow Facebook, that's the information I have at this time. And want to remember Lydia and her brother and sister as they're going through this loss. We have a lot of people on our continuing prayer list. Please keep them all in your prayer. Magi boxes are due back Sunday, December the 13th. I think that's this one, isn't it? All right, so if you've got a Magi box, please bring it in. Sweets on wheels tomorrow. Instead of meals on wheels, we're having sweets. If you signed up with this, we need you to bring your sweets to the church fellowship hall by 9:30 a.m. And where'd they go? Do we have enough drivers? Everybody lined up? Okay. So if we have help with getting everything delivered, if you come and bring something, then maybe you can make a delivery for us. It's I'm told there may be cookies involved, homemade. So if you're involved in that, please remember tomorrow morning. Secret Sisters, I thought I was going to say Secret Santa. Secret Sisters Christmas and Reveal Party will be on Tuesday, the next one that comes up, December 15th at 6 p.m. in the fellowship hall. There will be desserts and coffee. Please bring your gift with your name on it, ready to reveal your secret sister. If you cannot make the party, please bring your gift to the office, and we'll also be drawing names for next year. So if any of you are secret sisters, and even if you got COVID in the middle of the year and didn't get to finish up, please, if you can make that appointment, we want to take the opportunities for fellowship that we get, and we don't get a whole lot of them because of the social distancing and all, but if you could be a part of that, and we're part of the Secret Sisters, that's next week as well. There are books from my library as I'm packing the office up. There's not enough place to put the books that I've got, and so I'm having to weed some out. Some of them may be older, some of them may be specific to a topic, and you're welcome to go through. We're putting them on the table outside the office wing right now, and every day I go through and empty more shelves and clean out the office more, and so there are more out there. I've had several of you find family pictures and stuff in the different books. It's where people gave them to me, and I didn't know the pictures were in there. And so if you find pictures, just bring them back to me. If you like the people, put them up in your house and say they're your relatives. There may be free with some surprises out there. There's some old classics as well. The Christmas card box was put up this weekend by the office foyer. If you want to send cards to people who attend the congregation, be sure to check the box often for any cards that you may have received. I know a lot of people have a practice of, and I guess since I'm on my way out I can say this, practice of writing everybody in the directory a card. Some of these people are shut in or are not able to get out, and you might want to take that into consideration, because every year we end up with over a box or box and a half left. And there are some people who are not able to attend right now, and they won't get their Christmas cards because they never come back in January and pick them up. So I just put that out for your consideration, that if you're going to use that this year, if you're not going to use it, that's okay. But like I said, every year we end up with at least a whole box full, if not more, left over. Nothing on the back. Anybody have anything else to share, to update? We're glad to have Joel and Joan back from your trip, and glad that God granted you safety on that as well. Okay, Richie's having problems with kidney stones. By the way, Connie is still having trouble with her kidney stones. She has not passed yet. I talked to her this afternoon, and Rex continues to deteriorate. Alyssa's there with him helping. So kidney stones are not the best way to celebrate the holidays. So hopefully pray for those people to soon have their problems corrected. Anybody else we need to add to the list? Okay. Let's begin with prayer. And Tim, would you lead us in prayer?
Our God, Father, we just come before you for grace and mercy this evening. Realizing the blessings we can come from you. Sometimes we take it for granted. Help us always to realize that every good and perfect gift is yours to us. We thank you for your Son, for his willingness to come to this earth, share his life as an example that we should try to pattern our lives. But knowing all the while that he would give his physical life for us, to take upon his shoulder of our sins, that he would return to your side. And one day we would hopefully be able to join him there, that he live our lives according to your will. We ask you to forgive us in our lives where we fail you, help us always to strive to take your word and apply it to our everyday life, that we may be examples of what you have us to be. As we open your word tonight, we just thank you for the power that we have through you, and once again, we'll be able to emulate our lives according to your will. We have a lot of folks that are dealing with physical issues at this time, whether it be tests they're undergoing, the situations that they're in, or dealing with COVID. We ask a special blessing upon those who are in our announcements tonight for Lieutenant Calvin Jr. as he continues to be dealing with several issues in his life, and dealing with that family, for Terry, for Lynn, Richie, or Connie, as they're dealing with the situation, that you would give them a quick and full recovery. We're especially mindful of Steve Sharp, as he lost his brother, we need to help him. Her mom passed away. She would be with him and comfort him as always. We thank you for each and every blessing that comes from your hand. Help us always to realize and to strive to know that those blessings are because we have hope, not only hope but assurance that whatever this life brings to us, that there is a better place in earth for us to bring your children. We love you and thank you for all our blessings. This prayer in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Well, we're fairly scattered out, so if you read tonight, read loudly where everybody can hear you. But we're glad to have each person here in our class tonight. We're going to be looking at John chapter 9. John chapter 9. I'm skipping ahead a little bit because we don't have but a couple of weeks left in this year, and that's when my term to teach in this class is going to be over. So I wanted to get into something that we could spend our time talking about today, and instead of having to reset the scene every 3 or 4 verses. It's good stuff, and it's stuff that needs to be studied. But just for a classroom, I thought that chapter 9 went all together, and it would make it easier as a studying tool. What I want you to do is we're going to stay primarily in John chapter 9. And it's one story. What we want to look at is what all's going on. It's one story, but there are several people you need to look at. You need to look at the disciples of Jesus first. Of course, Jesus and his interaction. You need to look at the man who's been blind since birth and the Jews' reaction there. You need to look at the Pharisees and the priests and how they react later in the story when Jesus goes into the temple itself. So there's a lot going on in this particular chapter. And the questions, again, are more of an outline. We may not hit every one of them, or we may in our discussion. But it starts like this in John 9 and verse 1. Now Jesus passed by. He saw a man who was blind from birth. All right, first question, how long had this man been blind? How long do you think that might have been? Since what age? Since 0. And he's a grown man now. I know later, because his mama says so in the text that we read, when the officers of the temple come up and say, ask him questions about what's happened and what's going on with him, she says, ask him yourself. He's a grown man. So we're not looking at a baby or something like that. We're looking at somebody who's been blind since birth, but he's a grown man by now. And what do his disciples, what question immediately when they see this blind man do the disciples ask? Who sinned? Why did they ask that question?
They assumed that it was like a curse or something, that it was somebody's fault that he was blind.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to add to it? They assumed that that somebody is paying for the price for their sin. Now he gives 2 possibilities. He says, was it him or was it his parents?
Kind of silly question, because he was born blind, not like he was born with sin in his life.
Right. They kind of might miss the boat of what was going on here, didn't they? The disciples, therefore disciples even today, sometimes we read the familiar and we forget to look at what it says. We've got our preconceived notions about what it says or what we believe, and we don't look at it. So it's interesting for me that it's the disciples who are asking to jump to the conclusion that somebody has sinned here. That's one thing to jump to. Then Mark says it's kind of silly to ask if he sinned because he's been blind since he was born. So did he sin before he was born? So just getting into the first couple of sentences there, we haven't got very far, and we've already got problems going on. Verse 3 says, Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day, for the night comes when no man can work. As long as I am in this world, I am the light of this world. So Jesus said, who sinned? No one. We assume that there's a logical cause for everything that happens in our life. Why did that person pull over on the highway when he did and hit the other car? I don't know. Maybe he didn't see them. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe he didn't like those people and he was trying to run them off the road. Maybe it was road rage. I don't know why, but there's sometimes when you just don't have an answer. When you work in the lives of people as much as I've been blessed to over the years, and you get to what's a marriage problem sometimes, or what's a sickness problem sometimes, I'm so often asked the question, why? What did I do wrong? You ever have been experienced that when somebody says, what did I do? Why is God punishing me? How do y'all answer that question when you get it? Call the preacher. I say, I don't know why. I don't know why this has happened. I don't think it's something God planned out. I saw a letter from a young girl not long ago. She had gotten pregnant and then gotten married, and she lost her baby. And she said in this letter, I'm tired of you all asking me or telling me that my baby is with God, that God took my baby, that God wanted my baby. Sometimes we give the wrong answers when even though our spirit's right and we want to try to give it. She didn't want to blame God for the loss of this child. She knew that it happened biologically, but she was sad. She wanted the people not to be judgmental that who committed the sin, the mother or the father, or who committed the sin that caused this baby to die. There's not always a logical connection there. So what does Jesus say was the purpose here? It wasn't because of anybody's sins, it was what? Where God can show His power. And sometimes that would be hard for a lot of people to receive. This man spent a whole lifetime blind just where God could show His power in a miracle later on. It appears to me that he's not real concerned about being blind. And he's learned to live with it. He's learned to make do. A lot of times when I come into the house late at night and it's dark, I'll close my eyes just to pretend I'm blind and try to feel my way to the door. How far do you think I get before I open my eyes? About a step and a half. I can't imagine what it would be like to totally be blind. I guess that could happen to me, but this man was not worried about the why. He was dealing with the fact that it is. And when he can see in just a minute, he rejoices that he can see. He goes from where he is. Some of us spend so much time trying to figure out what has happened and what's going on that we fail to see the beauty before us and the power of God in our lives today. And then Jesus says something else when he talks about this work. He says the works of God should be revealed in him. Then he said, I must work the works of him who sent me. What work is he talking about? What did he come to do? Seeking to save the lost. And how does he do that? He dies on the cross. And he's resurrected from the tomb. Jesus knew every day that he was here that he was going to die for the sins of the world. Did somebody want to say something in there? I can't tell as good with your mask on if you're trying to tell me something or not. But he said not only that he had to finish the works that God had sent him with, he says the night is coming when no man can work. What in the world does that mean? Sometimes you're going to get old and sick and not able to do what you used to do. One day you're going to die and you're not going to be able to go to work the next day. Or at least you shouldn't go to work the next day if you died in the night. What's he really saying? Take advantage of the time that you have to do what? God's work. The work that God has given us to do. We spend a lot of our times doing things that are good, that are not God. How can something be good and not God? Now, you know, every time we have Meals on Wheels, or we're going to have Sweets on Wheels this week, I go up and volunteer to sample everything. I just feel like it's my responsibility to do that, to offer. Sometimes they'll throw me a little piece of meat and I'll go over and scramble over there on my forearm and go, yeah, and get the piece of ham or whatever they send over there. But that's not what God gave me to do, to get up and go up and see if I could eat anything. That's not my work to do. My work to do is to encourage those that are up there, to show the gospel in the ones that we take to share the gospel in those that we take to. But what he's trying to say is to take advantage of the time. As long as I'm in the world, Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. That was his job, to give hope to the world. Are we hitting our questions pretty good as we're going down the list? We've answered one. We've talked about, why was this man blind? It wasn't because of his parents. It was because God's work was going to be shown in him. When is the night coming? According to what Jesus says right here. Yeah, but when is that night coming?
I think he could be talking about that. I mean, because when we don't.
That's possible. I think that's one of the answers, yes.
We can't work anymore. We have a limited time here.
So what day are you going to die on? And I think that's the point. We don't know when we're going to die. We don't know when we're going to break a leg. We don't know when we're going to get COVID. We don't know when we're going to have all these other things come up. And so it's important and incumbent upon us that we not spend our time using it unwisely. But we need to seek out the Lord's will and spend our time wisely in doing his work. Does that mean that you always have to be a preaching a lesson, teaching a lesson, singing a song every minute of your day? No, but it means that you ought to be able to be in a position where you could if you needed to. And that we take advantage. How many of you have missed opportunities? I know I do. Every time the mailman comes, I get some card that said, I missed my opportunity to get a home warranty. I missed my opportunity to get a car warranty. I missed my opportunity to get Medicaid co-insurance, or whatever they call the other Medicare. I said Medicaid, but Medicare. I get a letter every day telling me what great opportunity I missed, but if I'll just try one more time, get one more day, I can get these steak knife set if I'll listen to their presentation. Those are not the opportunities he's talking about. What's Jesus talking about here?
He is physically in this world before he dies. To take advantage of the relationships that he's and the example he's had with other people. Not necessarily, of course, we can make it applicable to us too, but I think here he's talking about himself.
Yeah, there's an application for us, but he's talking to himself that he came to be light. Why would he come to be light when we're talking to a blind man? Because he's fixing to give him his sight. And he's going from total darkness all of his life into being able to see. Jesus is using this as a teaching method about why he was here. He didn't come to condemn, he came to save. The message of the gospel is positive, and it's one that we need to hear every day. So he says, as long as in this world I am the light of the world. He has to have his message shown. Now this is one of the hardest miracles for me to accept. Not because of what happened, but because how it happened. Jesus spits and makes mud and puts in somebody's eye. I don't know about you, but that just doesn't sound like exactly the ointment I'd want. Somebody to spit and make a mud pie and put it in my eye. And would you do it if it happened? So he said, when he said these things, he spat on the ground and he made clay with the saliva. This version says it a little sweeter there. And when he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and he said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is interpreted, sent or traveled to Elijah the prophet, and he comes in front of his house and he's got his horse and his chariot, all of his mighty men with him, and he's ready to come in and be healed. And Elijah doesn't even come up out of the dining room, or the den, wherever he was. I'm not sure where he was in his house. Typically weren't real big houses anyway. He says, go down to the River Jordan and dip 7 times. And Naaman becomes enraged. He says, that's the dirtiest river around here. Think about the Avenon, the far part. They're far cleaner waters than any water you've got to offer in the Jordan River. Behold, I thought he would come out of his house and put his hands up in the air and all of these great things and so, that were going to happen, and I was going to receive my sight. I'm insulted. I'm going to go away. I don't have to do this. And he didn't. But he would remain in his leprosy if he didn't do what God said. One of his servants finally catches up to him and says, my Lord and Master, if the prophet had bid thee some great thing to do, wouldn't you have done it? If it had been a spectacle, when you jump on your leg 3 times and try to jump over the wire or jump up onto the top of the fence post, or when you, if he had told you to take fire to your bosom when you've tried to do that, when he says just go dip and be healed, why not do what he says? Why not believe him? Why not trust him? Because it wasn't grand enough. Talking about not grand, spitting in the mud and making mud packets to eyeballs. I assume it was on his eyeballs. Sounds like a gritty mess that's going to cause more problems than curing. Go ahead, Joel.
We have to remember that the process that Jesus used was for our benefit. It moved all down about, something fancy being done. But the big thing is the man was blind. He had no concept of what Jesus would do. He didn't know whether he went to the pot and got something, or whether he just, as it says, he mixed up a bunch of mud. Now, his faith and his willingness to obey what Jesus told him is what saved him. So he didn't know all this was going on, but we did.
I suspect he may have had a hint that he heard Jesus spit. I think. Now, I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true at all. But I've always thought about, even if I knew it was been spit in the mud, would I do what he said? But I hear your point, and it's a good point taken, that he may have been oblivious to it all because he's been blind all his life. And nobody's offered him help. And I don't think he really knows who Jesus is until he has his encounter. I think until Jesus shows his power, because he becomes a believer later on in the story. He claims to become a believer. So let's get back to John and look at Jesus' life. And he talks about being the light of the world, and he goes and he washes off in the pool of Siloam, which is right there at the temple. And people begin to notice him. This translation says, therefore the neighbors and those who perceived that they had seen him, he was blind, said, is not this the one who sat and begged? Why do you think he was sitting and begging at the temple? Because that's where the beggars came. Where do we find the man who couldn't walk? And Jesus went down and said, no man will let me get in the pool first. And so I'll never be healed when the angel troubled the waters. The water's used in a lot of Jesus' miracles, by the way, if you haven't noticed it. A lot of the miracles of the Bible. Marshall Keeble, a great African-American evangelist of the Churches of Christ, some years ago, wrote a sermon. I've copied it over the years and made it my brand. But the name of the sermon was, There's Water in the Plan. If you go back and look at the beginning of history, you see there's water in the plan when the earth was separated from the dry lands. There's water in the plan when Moses crosses the Red Sea. You see there's water in the plan. What are some other places we see there's water in the plan? Moses in the desert. Water turned to wine. What about Jonah and the whale? Was there water, or there's a whale walking around on dry ground? Philip and the eunuch. See, here's water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? Acts chapter 8. Jesus and John the Baptist were baptized in Aaron to Enon because there was much water there. So when you look at it, there's so many times. What about the ark itself? Was there water in that plan? going to rain. And as far as we know, it had never rained before, but they were building an ark for the rain. They never had an ark. They never had a rain shower, and water comes from the deep, and it comes from the heavens above, and the ark floats, and the people are saved, and they start over society. Anyway, that wasn't the lesson I had tonight, but there is water in the plant, and it just amazes me how many times they were supposed to get into the pool when the angel disturbed the water. They were supposed to go and wash in the pool of Siloam here. There's just a lot of water in the plant, and when it comes to baptism, God's always used water, so I don't know why people are surprised at that element there. Anyway, back to where we were. So the neighbors and those other people who saw him said, this is the guy that's been blind all his life. He's the one that lives next door down the street. He's the one that we've seen brought to the temple to beg before, because that's where people came, was to the temple to beg. He's been blind all of his life, and now he's walking around seeing what's going on here. So naturally, somebody had to come up with an answer. What was the first thing they said?
Some said, no, he just looks like him.
Yeah, this isn't him. But maybe a brother or cousin or something. Somebody that just looks like him. Why do you think they said that? To discount the power of God? To discount the miracle? To give a reasonable or plausible alternative to what was being presented before them? Do what? They were in this whole system of denial that this can't be happening, because there would be something we need to look at it. How were your eyes opened? They're at the temple, so you can assume that this is some of the Jewish head honchos, I guess, for lack of a better word. Probably the Pharisees, because they come into the play before the chapter is through. And they say, how were your eyes opened? Why can you see now? What happened? What's different that you can see now? And if you look at, which verse is it? Verse 11. He answered and said, a man called, are you looking at the verse? What does it say? A man called who? A man called Jesus. I can't tell you this story without telling you about this man called Jesus. Made clay and anointed my eyes, and he said to me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and I received sight. You want to know what happened? Here's how I received my sight. This man called Jesus. Jesus was important to him. Why do you think he started with Jesus? Because he's the one that made it happen. There was a man named Jesus, and he made some clay, put it in my eyes, and told me to go wash off in the pool of Siloam. And when I obeyed Jesus, when I did what Jesus said, what happened? I could see. You know, it reminds me of Amazing Grace, doesn't it, to you? I once was blind, but now I see. Jesus did a lot of healing of the blind, at least comparatively so to other things. Raising from the dead, resurrection. Was once lost, but now I see. And, oh, by the way, we skipped over the little piece in the lesson where the man and told them when they were trying to figure out who he was. He said, it's me, I'm him. I'll answer you. Just ask me up front, I'll tell you. You don't have to be talking about it. I'll be glad. I'm the one that was blind, and now I can see. And so that upsets the Jews. And then the Jews asked him a question. Why do you think they asked him? Or what is the question he asked first? Where is he? Jesus healed you? That's great. Where is he? Guess what day of the week it's going to be? Sabbath day. Of course it's on the Sabbath. Jesus does so much on the Sabbath, he gets in trouble every time. Oh my, that's not time to quit. So much to go through in so little time. Yes. Well, I've never counted, but I'll count. But he seems to be getting in trouble on the Sabbath for everything he does on the Sabbath. Do you think that was on purpose? Yeah, I think it is. He goes to where the Jews are worshiping, and he commits miracles. Commits, that's not the right word. But he performs miracles close by the temple. I think he wanted them to question him. I think that's what he was intending. I think he was trying to go to where the people would make an issue about it. And the man who did not see answered simply, "I do not know." And they brought him who formerly was blind to the Pharisees. And what happens then? How do the Pharisees? The Sabbath. On that day he made the clay and opened his eyes, was the Sabbath. The Pharisees asked him again, how did he receive his sight? He answered them again, and he told them, he made the clay, and I washed my eyes, and I see. And some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God because he does not keep the Sabbath. Can't be God's person because he worked on the Sabbath, because he caused you to see on the Sabbath, because he caused you to walk last time on the Sabbath. Couldn't be God doing good on the day of worship. Couldn't come from God if he's doing good on the day of worship. You know, man can mess up God's plan every time if he wants to. Just turn it over to a man when God says do something, and then he'll make a mess out of it.
Keith, I thought it was interesting in that second part of that verse, some of the Pharisees said, how can an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs? So there was actually a division of opinion between them. So some of the Pharisees thought, well, maybe this is something.
How can we discount the work of God that's so plain before us? Surely a man that's not getting his power from Jehovah would be not able to do this. And the other Pharisees, the Pharisees say to the blind man again, what did you say about him? What do you say about him? Because he opened your eyes. And the blind man the man who was formerly blind says, he is a prophet. He has power that comes from God. Later he's taught the way of the Lord more perfectly by the Lord himself. Hopefully we'll get to that before we get through. But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received a sight, and so they called his parents of the man who received a sight. And they said, is this your son, who you say was blind, who was born blind? How does he then now see? How would you like to be working one day and whatever age you are, the authorities come in and say, I need to talk to your mama. Scared mama to death. She was afraid of the Jews. I know because that's what the text says. My mama, bless her heart, if somebody had called and asked her, she would have said good stuff about me, I tell you, I promise you. So they called in mom and dad and they said, why did you say he was blind and now he can see? Can you explain that to me? Can you just tell me what's going on? And his parents answered and said, we know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but by what means he now sees we do not know, or who opened his eyes we do not know. He is of age, ask him. He will speak for himself. And his parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had agreed already that if anyone confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the temple. And therefore his parents said, he is of age, go ask him. He's old enough to answer their own questions. They've already asked him 2 or 3 times. Oh my, the time is gone. Hold on to this one, we'll finish it next week. We don't have too many weeks left in this year. It's going to be 2021 in no time at all. And some people say when we turn the page on next year, it's going to be better. I hope so. But just looking at the immediate future, I'm going to have to believe in a miracle.
Yeah, that's right.
To the midweek Bible study of College Avenue Church of Christ. We appreciate the hardy souls that have come out to join us in person this evening, as well as those who are participating in our midweek Bible study online. Our invitation song after Keith brings us the meditation. After Keith brings us the meditation, tonight's meditation and invitation will be, "He is able to deliver thee." So it will be projected on the screen to my rear, hopefully. Do we have slides? They're not in, oh, you didn't get my? Yeah, my first song is I'm Happy Today. Which may not be my first song if we... We'll sing A Common Love then. A common love for each other, a common gift to the Savior, a common bond, holding us to the Lord, a common strength when we're weary, a common hope for tomorrow, a common joy in the truth of God's word. Our invitation song will be He is Able to Deliver Thee.
Took off my mask where I can talk to you. I was just thinking, oh, what a wonderful day that will be when the mask no more we see. When we can walk hand in hand and hug one another and shake our hands again. When we don't have to be socially distanced, but we can be spiritually gathered. I'm not a poet, and I'm not going to try to make a poem out of that, but just rhymed a little bit with the idea that sometimes we take for granted what we had so much enjoyment in, our fellowship, our time of fellowship. Our assemblies are not near what they used to be in size, nor is the sound of our singing the volume it would be with the whole house. There's a great day coming, not just when we get rid of the mask, but when we get rid of this earth. When everything that we know has come to disappear and eternity begins. The question is, where are we when eternity begins? Are we ready to meet Jesus? Have we obeyed the gospel of Jesus Christ? Looking around this building, I know everybody who's seated here, and I know who's obeyed the gospel. That doesn't leave us anybody else in the room. But you know, as Christians, sometimes we need to come home. Sometimes we fail and fall along the wayside, and we need to be restored to our first love, to Jesus and to His church. And perhaps tonight that's where we stand, in a place that we need God's help and strength and restoration in our lives to be more as He would have us to be the church of Christ that exists in this community for the purpose of saving souls. I don't know what your needs are tonight. If you have needs that can be met publicly, but let me invite you to come to the front, and we'll sing a song to encourage any who does need to come, either for primary obedience or for prayers of the church, if you will, while we stand and sing.
Tis the grandest thing through the ages long, tis the grandest thing for a mortal tongue, tis the grandest thing that the world e'er sung. Our God is able to deliver thee. He is able to deliver thee. He is able to deliver thee. Though by sin oppressed, go to Him for rest. Our God is able to deliver thee. 'Tis the grandest thing, let the tidings roll to the guilty heart, to the sinful soul. Look to God in faith, He will make thee whole. Our God is able to deliver thee. He is able to deliver thee. He is able to deliver thee. Though by sin oppressed, go to Him for rest. Our God is able to deliver thee. Be seated, please. please, for a couple of announcements. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to look over the blue sheet, our prayer and announcement list. Be sure that you go over those and raise up those in prayer who are in need of God's healing and God's comfort, and in need of our support and our encouragement. And also prayers of thanksgiving for the prayers that have been answered on our behalf in the past week.
I don't remember if I put it on the sheet or not today, but Connie Akins, in addition to having a kidney stone, has some, I think it's carpal tunnel surgery coming up.
Okay.
At Southeast. So keep her in mind for her upcoming surgery.
So keep Connie Aiken, who also has, in addition to her kidney stone issues, carpal tunnel surgery coming up. Is that an Enterprise?
It'll be at Southeast.
Southeast, okay.
And I think it's carpal tunnel. I may have two people mixed up, but I believe.
So pray for Connie. Also, as was mentioned earlier, Richie Bell is having additional issues with his kidney stone and was not able to join us this evening. And then also, as Keith mentioned, Hilton Galloway has been exposed to COVID. He is asymptomatic right now, feels fine, everything appears good, but he is self-isolating until they determine whether he has any other symptoms. Are there any additional prayer requests? Sierra? Kaylin, Sierra's niece who broke her arm. So please continue to remember Kaylin as she mends a 7-year-old, I think? 5-year-old, okay. A couple of announcements just to reiterate what was covered earlier. The Magi boxes are due back. I think I didn't get a count tonight, but I know that we're getting close to that magic 80 number that we committed to. Sweets on Wheels tomorrow. The Secret Sisters Christmas and Reveal Party next Tuesday, and that's also the organization party for the 2021 Secret Sister season. Is it a season or Secret Sister year? And I've been asked to read this announcement, and I will read it verbatim so that I don't mess it up. Any ladies that are not currently in Secret Sisters and would like to be a part in 2021, please get a form from the church office and either leave the completed form in the office or bring it to the meeting on December 15th at 6 p.m. Are there any other announcements that need to be made? If not, we'll close with 2 verses of I Know the Lord Will Find a Way for Me, and then J.M. Hardwick will dismiss us in prayer. I know the Lord will find a way for me. Let's all stand as we sing and then have our dismissal prayer. Let us sing. I know the Lord will find a way for me. I know the Lord will find a way for me. If I walk in heaven's light, shun the wrong and do the right, I know the Lord will find a way for me. The Lord has said, go preach the word to all the world. The Lord has said, go preach the word to all the world. If I walk in heaven's light, shun the wrong and do the right, I know the Lord will find a way for me.
Dear merciful Father, just thank you so much for the blessings of the day and for the opportunity for us to be here. We just pray, Father, that we'll write the words that we've studied on our hearts and our minds and live them throughout this coming week. Thank you for Jesus and for your word that records the stories that he told and records all of his miracles and gives us the lessons and the guidance that we need to get through daily life. Please be with those that's been mentioned, Father. Pray for quick healing, quick recoveries. And pray for the caregivers and the families as they labor to take care of their loved ones. Please bless our heroes in our communities and overseas and their families. Keep them safe. Bring them home when their mission's done. And please forgive us of our sins. Protect us as we leave. These things we pray through Christ Jesus. Amen.